as I kind of just took one step after the other, the Lord just began to confirm a kind of a pastoral ministry route. Even though I had no idea what that would look like, I didn't know how that would affect my life and where that would take me. It was kind of just something the Lord continued to build. The Lord started opening doors, started giving a lot of opportunities to do ministry. Which one would you have us take, and where do you want us to go? And that's when Calvary Chapel Gainesville was one of those things that had come up on the horizon. Our lives are just a whole life of the Lord giving us just one little step after the other, and us being sometimes crazy enough to step forward in that and be obedient. The Lord doesn't call us to be perfect. He calls us to be surrendered.
Knowing, hey, why are we doing this? And it's really just to be able to show the love of Christ. And that's what makes it worth it, is that Christ has loved us so much that we're now able to pour that love out to other people.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Logan. This is Kiana, my wife. And we're from Calvary Chapel Gainesville here in Gainesville, Florida. Here to share a little bit of our story.
Yeah, so I'll kind of share first. So Logan and I, we met through youth group, and we were friends but didn't know each other very well. It wasn't until like young adult time area, I guess, when I started liking him, but we had a pause on feelings, and we're serving in ministry together, and it was through junior high ministry that the Lord kind of started to bring us together. And so fast forward to 4 years later, Logan finally asked me out. But something through that was that I point blank asked him if he was going to be in any type of ministry. Specifically, the Lord had shared with me about 5 years or 6 years earlier that I was going to be marrying a pastor through a discipleship program. I was in a Vision for Life, which is a year through Calvary Chapel Vita, Hungary. And through that, the Lord shared a lot of things. One, that I was going to be serving in ministry, and two, that I would be marrying a pastor. And so it kind of threw Logan off, but it was really cool how the Lord confirmed it. For him specifically, I think once he did ask me out, and I specifically asked him because I didn't want to waste any time if he wasn't going to be the right one for me.
It's been a journey, I think, to see how the Lord has led us through prior to our relationship up until we started dating, and then even from that point on, dating, engagement, and then married, and now full-time in ministry. And a lot's happened since then. So I guess, I'll just take a couple steps back. The Lord, I was serving in different places in our church and doing ministry there in different capacities, working full time with a normal job, a career that I was investing in and loving and enjoying. But yet there was a side of this that I really did love teaching the Word of God, and the Lord had continued to do ministry through that and work beyond my abilities and really show His hand in that. And so as I kind of just took one step after the other, the Lord just began to confirm teaching, the gift of teaching, and a kind of a pastoral ministry route in the future. And even though I had no idea what that would look like, I didn't know how that would affect my life and where that would take me. It was kind of just something the Lord continued to build. And so, a couple, I guess I should say that was kind of when we started getting together. That was when I was leading the junior high ministry at Calvary Chapel, Merritt Island back then, and we were serving together. And the Lord continued to bless that ministry, and we had a great time serving together. And then the Lord also impressed upon my heart that there's some different things going on in my life, and really started to refine me. And I had music going on. I had a few other avenues where I was doing ministry, but the Lord started to kind of show me and say, narrow it down, and not just you can't do it all. And so I was like, Lord, I want to teach. I want to teach the word of God. And so in that, letting go of some of those other ministries that I was involved in, really started, and again, kind of refining that ministry down to where that calling that Lord had on me. I had a heart to pastor, even though I didn't have any platform to do it. And so there was a lot of waiting and just being like, even though the heart was there, it was very evident that my situation wasn't for me to utilize that or even think about that or try to invest in that. When me and Kiana started, when she started liking me and we started thinking about relationships and those things, and it took me a while to come around, it did. But with that, the Lord really pressed him on my heart when I would consider, Lord, is this the one for me? Should I marry Kiana in that sense? And the Lord really confirmed to me and said, just kind of gave me the impression that if I were to pursue Kiana and we were going to get together, that it was going to be a life of ministry. And I didn't really know what that meant, but I was like, all right, Lord. And yet I recognized that would come with a lot of sacrifice. And so it was very difficult. I wasn't only just facing this decision to spend the rest of my life with someone, I was facing a decision to let go of a lot of things that I knew would eventually be let go of, and just a lot of life change, a life of ministry, a life of, or let me say this, it's a purity, it's a responsibility that's heavier in some ways than others. It's church leadership in that way. And so with that being said, I'll just take a step back. It's not, you sometimes I can get this impression that I just want this little cottage, a little American life, and sit there and work my 8 hours, check in, check out, have my little family, and we would love that. And yet the Lord's kind of called us in a different way of this ministry, which is a bit more in our lives. We can experience it's had its ups and downs, and it's not the perfect little life on the prairie in a sense. Well, as I started contemplating, like, wow, Lord, like this is a lot for me to get in a relationship, to pursue marriage with Kiana. Means ministry, and it means a lot more than just spending your rest of your life with someone. It means a life of ministry. And so that was really heavy, and it was difficult for me to face. And like I said, I had a career I was investing in, and even though I didn't really know a lot of details and the Lord wasn't revealing a lot to me, I just knew it would cost a lot. And so it was a lot of burden going on in my life trying to muscle through that. Yeah, the Lord continued to every step of the way confirm and be there right with us. I did ask her out, and we started dating, and then we dated, we had an engagement, we got married, all of those good things. And I guess I'll go right into, post-marriage. We were kind of always talking about, we'll get married and we'll spend maybe a year or two before we kind of dive into a ministry again, because both of us was serving in ministries prior. And so we're kind of like, maybe we'll take a step back and kind of relax a little bit and kind of get settled in. And then, but the reality was that the Lord had a different plan, and he really blessed our marriage a lot, where we were equipped and we felt ready to step into a ministry. And then the Lord called us into a ministry right away. And so we took on young adults, and that was 2 years post-marriage ministry plan that we had turned into a 2-week plan ministry.
Yeah. We got back from our honeymoon and started young adults.
Yeah. And so we jumped right into ministry right out of marriage, which was a blessing, and the Lord continued to use that to grow us and stretch us in so many ways. And so we were blessed with that opportunity for the Lord to open that door and lead us into that ministry. 2 Timothy 4:2, the Lord really gave me that verse, taking on young adults that first time. And that was kind of the ministry that we took on, that we really dove into ministry together and kind of in this new season. And that verse says, teach the word in season and out of season. And that really spoke to us of being ready. And it's not just showing up on a day and you're ready on that day. No, it's in season and out of season. It's in the evening, it's in the morning. It's you being equipped and walking with the Lord, being ready for whatever the Lord brings your way, and to do the ministry that he has brought before you, not just some specific time frame or scheduled appointment, and so that was a theme that was heavy in that season with young adults. But teach the word, that really, and that's the second part of that verse that really spoke and has paved a lot of, the Lord confirming his calling in our lives is teach the word in season and out of season. And so we jump right into marriage. We start leading young adults. We start leading young adults, and then I want to jump into
to then do school, which was a big stuff. He I remember him coming home one day and was like, I think I'm going to go back to school. I was like, okay. And, or actually you were already in school, but you said, I think I'm going to do school full time. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I think I'm going to quit my job. I was like, oh, okay. But it was, that was pretty heavy. And there's a lot, I think, going through my mind, like, okay, how are we going to do this? How's the Lord going to provide? And it was pretty wild. I had just gotten hired, for my first nursing job. So it was kind of like within that period, like that same month, I had just gotten hired. And then Logan felt led to quit, and so it was I think a hard year, but we saw the Lord's provision through it all, and it was definitely so sweet seeing even through young adults how the Lord used his schooling just to really refine and equip him for that calling. So that was a journey, an adventure. We're glad school is done. But and then shortly after he graduated, then Lord kind of led us up here. I'll let him share more on that.
With my job, I'd worked there for 8 years, even 10 years, part-time for a couple years there before that, but 8 years. And I was getting good at what I was doing, and I loved what I was doing, and then being good at it makes it just the cherry on top. And so monetarily speaking, it's good to make money. And as a family with a 1-year-old, I think we had Annalise was just almost 1 at that point, and logistically it was great. And we had a little home that we renovated, and life was going really well. And she had just started nursing then, and so she was just starting that job, and we have babysitters local, so everything was working out quite well. And yet there was I was doing school part-time, and I felt the Lord brought me into that. I was taking it really slow, but kind of just doing it in the background as and just being obedient to what the Lord had called me to do, and that is just be equipped for ministry. And because I knew that was obviously, as we talked about, it's a calling, and so I was like, this is a step that I can take right now. So we took that step of doing ministry, of doing school for ministry, but it was just kind of in the background. And then it got to a point where I just, it was very clear that if I continued just living in these both lives, where I was trying to do school and ministry and investing in ministry, and then I was doing this career and investing in work and enjoying that and pursuing that it was splitting my life in two, and it was really too much for me to handle, and so I just had to choose, to either invest fully into my career and into that job, or turn a different way and go into ministry. And it's not only benefiting one or the other, ministry or work, but it's also benefiting my family, because I was being kind of split into too many directions, and it was affecting us. So I really, as I took a step back, I just felt like the Lord has called me here, and so I'm going to take that step of faith and quit my job and start pursuing this to see where the Lord does with it. And it was, the Lord that she had just started, it wasn't like that she had just started her nursing job, and it wasn't anything we had really planned out, but it was just kind of that one step at a time. When we got to that point, the Lord made it clear, and so we took that next step. And so I did. I quit my job, and I pursued school to try to get it kind of knocked out and put it out of the way quicker, so that we could move on past that and I could then make money in a different way in some other capacity. Or as the school came to an end, which was another thing that wasn't really planned, and we didn't facilitate this, but as it really came to the last semester, within that last semester, the Lord started opening doors and started giving a lot of opportunities to do ministry, and I sought none. I really didn't seek any. I was just doing. We were faithful in what the Lord had called us, which was young adults, and we were just continuing on in that and happy there. Really, the Lord was blessing it, and we were very content. But yet, when school started coming to an end, it was kind of funny because I was looking at this deadline of school, and then I see these different opportunities coming up, and I'm like, all right, Lord, like this is more than just a coincidence. You're bringing these opportunities to me, and which one would you have us take, and where do you want us to go? Where do you want us to be? And that's when Calvary Chapel Gainesville was one of those things that had come up on the horizon, which was in a way not sought after. It wasn't pursued, and it was kind of a behind the scenes thing, just kind of thrown together, and yet the Lord had his hand, and he just brought it right before us and confirmed that we should move to Gainesville, which was another big step. I mean, just I would say as drastic as quitting my job and relying on my wife to make some money. It was difficult to move churches and to take up an opportunity that the Lord had put before us, which was very difficult, and I would say difficult for us in just a practical sense, as ministry can be, but also in the world's eyes. I mean, it was not the right choice, if that makes sense, and there was a lot of practical things that just didn't really make sense. But the one thing we could look back on and confirm is that the Lord confirmed it. And the Lord gave us a couple verses and definitely confirmed us moving up to Gainesville.
One of the biggest things was the Lord provided. We were always planning to keep our little house that we had and create it as more of like a rental. And we're looking at that was going to be kind of like, retirement plan for us for the future, and felt called to sell it, which was a big step. And yet the Lord miraculously, provided through that. It was sold within that day, within like a couple hours of us putting it on the market, full asking price, like just a miracle truly. And through that, the Lord provided for me to be able to not have to work anymore and be with our kiddos, which was an answer to prayer, something we had been praying for years. And so, but with that all being said, that's not really speaking into the cost of ministry. To first highlight the provision of what the Lord did is huge, and just his faithfulness. But as far as the cost goes, I think the cost of ministry is that there's always going to be, you can look around and typically see people who are doing things that are easier or better, or in a worldly sense. Like, I could say that, if we were to not be in ministry right now, Logan might have a lot more Saturdays free, and like there'd be more like family time or whatever. But with that all being said, it's still it's completely worth it to see like the opportunities that the Lord brings up, and the ability that that we're able to just invest and help people, and seeing how the Lord is using us as just his vessels. It's humbling. Even more so, I think the biggest cost for us, for me personally, has probably been like familial relationships. It's always challenging to see, just people, once you say, hey, my husband works at a church, they start to back away and not really want to hang out with you anymore, even if they're family, which is not fun. But you just keep praying for them and praying that the Lord brings them to salvation. But
moving, I think, incorporated family, leaving a lot of family in some ways, and definitely for Kiana, but even for us as our family, we had grandparents that would watch our kids, and so like grandparents close by is very beneficial for a small family like we have with little kiddos. And so there was a lot of practical things that we had to let go of. Of course, we did sell our house, and there was So that's something that you enjoy and you love, you pour into your home, and you plan on not selling it. And yet, this move, it just made sense to sell it. And the Lord was good in blessing us with that. And beyond that, then just leaving your church home and going into a new environment, there's a lot there to be transitioned in that way. And I think if I can take a step back, as I said in the beginning, we are from Calvary Chapel, Gainesville, so that's currently our home. So as we're telling the story, we have come to Calvary Chapel, Gainesville, and the Lord is continuing to do things, and we could share a lot more on how the Lord's led and guide us through our journey, coming into ministry and in ministry. If I could just comment briefly on the simple thing of being led by the Lord. I can give this one story. There was a gentleman, a really dear friend of mine, and he said, "Man, I wish I heard from the Lord as clearly as you did, or even as often as you did." He gave that impression, and it struck me. It took me back, because as I look at my life, I don't feel like I hear from the Lord that much at all, and no more than anyone else. And I say that because so often I think we all would want to hear from the Lord more and get clear direction and be guided so precisely in so many different ways. And yet that's not always how the Lord works. He gives you something, and he leads you one step at a time. And so to kind of comment on that, our lives are just a whole life of the Lord giving us just one little step after the other, and us being sometimes crazy enough to step forward in that and be obedient. And so you can simply say it's just the simple obedience to the Lord and the last thing the Lord's called you to do. And we tell stories like this and of how the Lord's led us, and yet we don't necessarily get into all the details of how we drug our feet and we weren't obedient right away. And I think that's the reality, is that we're not perfect. The Lord doesn't call us to be perfect. He calls us to be surrendered. And so if I could be of an encouragement, as you look at your own life and I think of our lives are not perfect, and we haven't done everything right. And all these different transitions, we could do it a lot better even. We tried to be faithful to the Lord and what He's called us, but it doesn't mean we did it perfectly. Yet I just want to be surrendered to the Lord right now, right here in this season, in these next few steps in the ministry the Lord's given us right now. I want to be surrendered, and the steps that He's called us to, or I should say, the places that He has put us, I want to be obedient, even if it does look a little odd sometimes, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. I say that because we all have the ability to walk close and be led by the Lord. The Lord has a calling for each of us, and He leads and guides us in different ways, and He's speaking to us, and I just pray that we'd be obedient. That's the prayer of my own heart, that I'd be obedient to what the Lord calls me day by day. And if we do that, then He'll take us a lot farther than we could ever go on our own. Mm-hmm. And He, certainly in ministry, He will be the one that's glorified in our lives. And so that's my prayers, that we would continue to be surrendered and walk in obedience.
More so recently, like something that the Lord has heavily placed on my heart is just the ability to do things in love, and like the importance of knowing, hey, why are we doing this? And it's really just to be able to show the love of Christ, and that's what makes it worth it, is that Christ has loved us and to so much that we're now able to pour that love out to other people. And so that is, I think, for me, that's what makes this all worth it. At the end of the day, just being able to look back and say, wow, Lord truly loved us. He was so faithful.
Micah 6:8 says, He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And as she spoke on love, I think this is a verse that's been pertinent in my life recently, is what does the Lord require of you? Just to walk humbly with your Lord. And if you're walking humbly with your Lord, then you'll be tentative and you'll have an ear to what He has called you to do and where He's leading you. So I pray that my heart would walk humbly. I wouldn't walk in pride or deceit, Lord. I'd walk in humility before you, Lord. So And that's our story.